Chinese President Xi Jinping is going to skip the G20 Summit in New Delhi this weekend. A Beijing Foreign Ministry spokeswoman said that China's Premier Li Qiang will attend the G20 Summit instead of the President. Earlier on Sunday, US President Joe Biden expressed disappointment over Chinese leader Xi Jinping not attending the gathering. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is set to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in hours from now, persuading the Russian leader to rejoin the Black Sea grain deal is expected to be on top of the agenda. Now, Russia withdrew from the arrangement in July, which skewed grain exports from Ukrainian ports. Ever since the withdrawal, Turkey has repeatedly pledged to renew the arrangements that helped avoid a food crisis in parts of Asia and Africa. The meeting in Sochi on Russia's southern coast comes after weeks of speculation about when and where the two leaders might meet. Erdogan previously said that Putin would travel to Turkey in August. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has announced that he is replacing Kyiv's defense minister, Oleksiy Reznikov. He termed the move as a new approach in the ministry. The move sets the stage for the biggest shakeup of Ukraine's defense establishment since the onset of the war in February of 2022. Zelensky has nominated Rustem Umerov to replace Reznikov. Umerov is a Crimean Tatar, an ethnic group native to Crimea, who has been head of State Property Fund since last year. Now, this is known to be a particularly tough role in Ukraine, where the process of privatization has been plagued by corruption. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has rejected the objections raised by China and Pakistan over the G20 meets held in Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and the northeastern state of Arunachal Pradesh. Both the nations claim the region as a disputed territory. In an interview to news agency Press Trust of India, PM Modi said that it is natural to host G20 meetings in every part of India's territory. In the interview, Prime Minister Modi also said that Africa is India's top priority. He said India backs inclusion of the African Union as a full member of the G20. He advocated the representation and recognition of all voices for a successful future of the planet. Leaders arrived in the Indonesian capital of Jakarta ahead of the 43rd ASEAN Summit. But divisiveness might mar the meetings amid rising regional tensions such as the South China Sea conflict. Analysts say the unity of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is under threat due to the diverse views on contentious issues and restraints on discussing them. Earlier, the Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan and Vietnam rejected a map released by China denoting its claims on the South China Sea. Pope Francis ended his visit to Mongolia with a stop to inaugurate the House of Mercy. The multi-purpose structure will provide temporary health care to the needy and the homeless, to victims of domestic abuse and to migrants. The House of Mercy is situated in a converted school and is the brainchild of Mongolia's top Catholic cleric. The main purpose of the Pope's 5-day trip was to visit the minuscule Catholic community. The visit took on international connotations because of his overtures to neighboring China over freedom of religion in the country. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with the President of Cyprus at the Presidential Palace in Nicosia. Cyprus and Israel are working on a deal to build a pipeline that will convey natural gas from both countries. The gas will later be liquefied for export to Europe and potentially elsewhere. Instead of a direct pipeline connection to Europe, processed gas from Cyprus could reach international markets by ship. So far, 5 sizable gas deposits have been discovered off Cyprus's southern coastline, and Israel has 11 such fields. The two leaders met ahead of a tripartite meeting with the Greeks. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa attended the ANC manifesto rally on Sunday. Ramaphosa said that the needs of South Africans are better met today than they were at the end of the apartheid era. The president also admitted his mistakes along the way but urged voters not just to look at the ANC's record of recent years. Ramaphosa called on voters not to focus on the negative aspects of his record but to look at the progress made in 30 years. Now, South Africa will decide whether he gets a second term as leader in the upcoming elections. Five people were shot and injured during a domestic dispute at a home in Atlanta. The suspected gunman later killed himself. All 5 victims were taken to a hospital and are in stable condition. They include a 3-year-old and a 15-year-old. There were 2 other children at the home who were not injured. The suspected gunman was an 18-year-old who was found dead at the scene. Now, Atlanta police chief said that this is the latest in a string of shootings during domestic disputes over the weekend. In Seattle, bodies of 2 adults and 2 children were found following a reported shooting and house fire. After a report of a shooting incident in a residential area of the city, officers found the house engulfed in flames and its doors barricaded, closed. Nearby residents were evacuated and firefighters extinguished the blaze before finding the victims' bodies inside the house. An 11-year-old girl escaped the fire with minor injuries and was treated by emergency personnel. And in Nevada, over 70,000 people stuck at the Burning Man festival have been told to conserve food, water and fuel. Now, this comes after heavy rain turned the elite festival's campsite to a mud bath. Nevada authorities have said they are investigating 1 death during the event. Access to and from the festival site, Black Rock City, has also been closed. Vehicular movement has been stopped, leaving attendees stranded in the desert. Now, every year, the 9-day art-focused event sees celebrities and tech CEOs in private jets and luxury camps. For the ultra-wealthy, the Burning Man festival can be a glamorous undertaking. But this year, even those who have employed private chefs can face a shortage of food as they remain stranded in the desert. Indian space research organization's Chandrayaan-3 has achieved another milestone today. The Vikram lander once again successfully soft-landed on the lunar surface during a hop experiment. The lander fired its engines, elevated itself by about 40 centimeters as expected, and landed safely at a distance of 30 to 40 centimeters away. Meanwhile, the Pragyan rover from Chandrayaan-3 travelled over 100 meters and confirmed the presence of sulfur, iron, oxygen and other elements on the moon. The spacecraft landed on the unexplored south pole of the moon on August 23rd, making India the first country to achieve this feat. Astronauts from the United States, the United Arab Emirates and Russia splashed down safely in the SpaceX Dragon Endeavour craft earlier today. The craft landed in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Jacksonville in Florida. Teams on the SpaceX Recover Y ship, including 2 fast boats, secured Dragon and ensured the spacecraft was safe for the recovery effort. A recovery ship moved into position to hoist Dragon into the main deck with the astronauts inside. The crew was taken out of the spacecraft to receive medical checks before departing for Houston in the United States. Police detained at least 2 people in Sweden's Malmö, where a Quran burning took place on Sunday. Police reported some violent scuffles. The Quran burnings have sparked angry protests in Muslim countries. Attacks on Swedish diplomatic missions and threats from Islamic extremists have also begun in the wake of this incident. Muslim leaders in Sweden have called on the government to find ways to stop the Quran burnings. The government has announced an inquiry into the legal possibilities for enabling police to reject permits for demonstrations over national security concerns. The first Africa Climate Summit in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, kicked off on Monday. The summit began with an opening ceremony which included the youth performing traditional dances. President William Ruto said on Monday that an African position on climate action would be to save lives and the planet from calamity. The first Africa Climate Summit comes ahead of a flurry of diplomatic meetings leading to the November COP28 Climate Summit in the United Arab Emirates. Now, the COP28 is likely to be dominated by clashing visions for the world's energy future. Over 40 people were injured and tens of thousands of homes were left powerless as Typhoon Haikui made its way across Taiwan. The storm made landfall along the southeastern coastal town of Donghai at about 3:40 p.m. local time and left land at about 8 p.m. The typhoon lashed the entire region with torrential rain and strong winds within the 4-hour duration. According to Taiwan's Interior Ministry, more than 7,000 people across 11 cities and counties were evacuated. Meanwhile, state electricity provider Taipower reported over 48,000 Taipei residents and other major cities suffered power outages. Typhoon Saola left a trail of destruction in the southern Chinese province of Guangdong as it weakened to a tropical storm over the weekend. The typhoon that earlier hit the coastal province forced several businesses, schools and financial markets to shut down. But now, as the intensity of the typhoon has weakened, production and life on Guangdong have returned back to normalcy, with railway operations and airlines permitted to resume gradually. Saola was among the most powerful storms to hit southern China since 1949 before being downgraded to a tropical storm. The super typhoon packed winds of over 200 kilometers per hour. African leaders are all set to sign a declaration on the 6th of September at the inaugural Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi. The declaration will present Africa as a solution to the global warming crisis. Now, the African Union aims to triple the proportion of electricity generated from renewable sources to 60% by 2030 compared to the 2019 levels. This ambitious goal will have a significant impact on reducing carbon emissions and on promoting a sustainable future. Energy giant Chevron is on the brink as mediation talks kick off. Workers at Chevron's two major LNG facilities rejected the company's offer, sparking fears of a major strike. A senior member of the Fair Work Commission is hosting the talks, but if a resolution isn't found, industrial action could disrupt Australia's LNG exports and the global natural gas market. Chevron's Gorgon and Wheatstone projects account for over 5% of global LNG production. Now, this could force Asian buyers to outbid Europeans for LNG cargo, impacting the world's largest LNG exporter. Recent data reveals that German exports fell by a lower than expected 0.9% in July, echoing concerns about a global demand slowdown. Supply chain disruptions, a more fragmented global economy, and China's growing self-sufficiency have all contributed to this decline. On the flip side, though, imports rose by 1.4%, painting a complex economic picture. The trade balance showed a surplus, but is shrinking. With July's drop in retail sales and disappointing exports, Germany's third quarter began on shaky ground. Experts warn of the risk of slipping into an economic contraction. A recent Reuters poll has shed light on the global property market's trajectory. According to the poll, average home prices in major markets are stabilizing, defying earlier predictions of double-digit declines due to rising mortgage rates. Many homeowners, especially in the United States, are locked in low mortgage rates, limiting supply and housing market activity. But this spells more frustration for first-time home buyers, who've long been priced out. Speculation was rife that central banks might cut rates, but experts are cautious. The root problem remains: strong demand meets weak supply.